Hi everyone, my name is Holdener. I'm very pleased to be speaking to you today. So I welcome you to this session. I am the CEO of Kinestry, which is an innovation studio focused on artificial intelligence. But I'm also the co-founder and president of Farm to People, which is a non-profit organization that was created this year as a response to the COVID pandemic in order to help minority-owned farms secure the harvest and transport this produce to the food banks so they can work in helping people facing hunger. And the reason why I'm here speaking to you about this organization, I'm first of all very grateful that I can share this mission with all of you. And the reason I'm here today to speak about this precisely is in the context of leadership and innovation. And what's been interesting for the last 8 months since we created that organization is that we built this from the ground up with no finance, no resources, no external help, just the people that were brought together on a volunteer basis. And since then, I'm going to share with you this amazing impact we had on our community, but also the fact that we're in the phase now, we're moving, we're expanding, we're going to have investment in 2021, and we're actually piloting a whole new design model to really build a more resilient food system. And so what I'm going to share during these 20 minutes that we have together is a few tools, very simple ones that I've been using since the beginning to drive innovation and to lead people in this journey. So what I'm going to ask you is to do a little bit of homework, a very simple one. So first of all, I'm going to ask you if you can get a sheet of paper and a pen. All right? You get that? Good. So now what I'm going to ask you is actually to draw a circle like this one and then put a nice stick figure in the middle of it, which represents you. All right? And you'll understand why we're doing this today. So before we talk about the tools in more details, I would like to give you some context about Farm to People and how everything started. So you remember in April of this year, during the surge of the pandemic, everyone went to lockdown in the US, and basically businesses had to close, hospitality management services, but also restaurants had to close down. And as a consequence, 50% of the food demand disappeared from one day to the next. And they are suppliers, and the suppliers are the growers, are the farmers, and they couldn't find any buyers, suddenly. And so what people don't realize is that they cannot just divert their produce to another channels like grocery stores. It's not that easy. And the reason why is because the way the supply chain of food, the way the food system is designed today is really pretty much unequal. It has a few buyers that concentrate the powers of owning those contracts. And so when everything disappeared, literally those buyers canceled those contracts, and the farmers were left with no choice than to destroy the crops. And you've seen this all over the news, farmers dumping milk in the lakes, in the landfills. You've seen people tilling under, destroying the crops by the million of acres. And that was a pretty distressful moment to see in the US, all this abundance basically not made available for people in need. And on the other hand, you've seen these long lines of people facing unemployment, waiting at the food banks to get some food to feed the families. And so on the other side of the spectrum, you had food banks that were literally, being challenged with a dramatic increase of demand, where they were struggling to find fresh, nutritious produce. So on one end, you have farmers destroying the crops. On the other hand, you have food banks that couldn't access to those crops to actually feed people. So that's how basically we started Farm to People here in California, put a team together, and what we did basically was trying to find a way to actually connect those excess harvests, excess supply to the food bank. And some people would say it's quite easy for farmer. If you have an excess produce, you don't have a buyer, why don't you donate this to a food bank? The thing is, it's not that easy. And the reason for that is because, what you grow, you have to pick. And picking has a cost. You need to hire farm workers to do that. And so basically a farmer cannot just afford to carry the cost of picking those produce, picking those crops, picking those harvests and donate that. And so they're in a situation where they had no choice than to destroy those crops. So what we did is that we raised money to friends and families, networks, social media, and basically we were paying the farmers for wholesale price so they can cover the cost of the labor. We could cover the cost of transportation, and then we donate those produce to the food bank. So since April, May of this year, we've basically managed to move around 55 tons of product, actually 60 tons now as we speak, and we've helped around 250,000 people through providing this nutritious produce to them. So it's been a very satisfying journey for all of us. I think it's there's a lot of organization working on that, and I'm very glad that we were able to do this in a very short period of time. The thing that was very interesting at the time is that we realized that doing this and having to rely on donation was not sustainable, and it really made us think about the sustainability of the food system. Can we take this moment, those challenging times, an opportunity to really reconsider and rethink the way food is moved from one place to the next? How can we tackle excess produce, waste of produce? As you know, 40% of what is grown in the US is actually getting wasted. It never ends up at the table of consumer. So we have a very wasteful system on one end. We have a system that concentrates power within a few buyers. So the question for us was, can we, what if we could design a much more localized and regional food system, give the farmers access to new buyers like restaurants, groceries, corporate restaurants, canteens, schools, but have a direct access for them to those buyers that would first of all give them new revenue opportunities, give them much more resilience and flexibility if one channel gets disruptive to actually source the produce and distribute the produce to another channel. But also that would give farm to people the access to the inventory, and then very quickly identify when there's an excess, and being able to this platform to capture those excess inventory, being able to pay for that, transport and deliver this to the food bank. If we could design a system, an ecosystem like that, where food waste is being managed, local farmers find new revenue opportunities, and then non-profit organization can benefit from this excess, then that would be perfect, and we wouldn't have to be dependent on donation. So that's what we've been working on and designing, and we've studied prototyping this platform, and 2021 we're going to be able to pilot it for the first time. And it's been a very interesting journey for 8 months where we've learned a lot by applying that. And we're in a phase where we got lucky enough to get a lot of attention. Very reputable design thinking firm, IDEO, decided to jump on board and really help us design and pilot the platform. And this is where we are starting in 2021, and hopefully to that we'll be able to create a first model where we can disrupt the food system to create much more resilience and something that is more equitable and that is more sustainable for both the consumers and the farmers. So that's basically the journey of Farm to People. Now you must wonder how this applies to your industry. Actually, independently from these industries, what matters is how you lead innovation. That's the subject I would like to share with you, and the tools and the principles that I'm applying. And you can apply this in any context, whether it's a small startup or a very large organization. As a matter of fact, applied these techniques when I was working also for Nestle, which is a very, very large organization in the food industry. There are seven elements that you need to take into consideration when you navigate and lead innovation. All right? So the 7 elements are purpose, urgency, talents, empowerment, governance, human center, and prototyping. All right? So you remember when I asked you to draw the circle with you at the middle? What I'm going to ask you to do is to look at the 7 elements that we've just been listing here and write them around the circle. So if this represents you as a leader, basically your job is to navigate across those 7 elements. And the reason why I'm putting this in a circle is for a very specific reason. This is not a sequence through which you're going when you lead an organization. It's more like how much emphasis or attention you need to put and to allocate to the 7 elements to constantly keep the momentum on innovation. And that's what I would like to spend some time presenting to you in more details. For any organization to succeed, for any project to thrive, you need a purpose. Okay? Purpose gives you meaning, gives you a goal, and the tool to mobilize the people you want to work with on this project. Without a purpose, your job is going to be very hard to engage others, as well as engaging yourself in this journey. So in the context of Farm to People, where our mission is really to help local farmers and feed people facing hunger, it's a purpose on steroid, I would say. But in other organizations, you can still find very meaningful purposes, okay? As an example, when I was working at Nestle, we had a big lean journey that we wanted to implement across the organization, which was, pretty vast. It was across 300,000 employees. And so the purpose beyond leading my team was really to say, how can we equip our people with tools and capabilities for them to really enjoy the work and feel that they can contribute to improving the day-to-day jobs by applying lean. And so the whole idea behind that, the purpose was, how can we actually be much more engaged and fulfilled in our job? That's the purpose. So what is your purpose? You need to find really the purpose behind the project that you want to lead. Urgency. Urgency is the fuel that you use to boost purpose. It really helps you gain momentum within the team. Remind them that we cannot accept complacency, that we need to be in constant motion to figure things out, to innovate and find solution. You have to be careful in the way you're using urgency. If you just keep pushing too much, then you may have the counter effect. So in the context of Farm to People, the urgency for us was saying that every day that passes where we're not in action trying to secure harvest and move this to the food banks, there are families that are still facing hunger. And on the other hand, there's a farmer that might go into bankruptcy. That was the urgency. And behind this idea is to say, we need to do things, even if they're not right, but we learn, and we adjust from that. And so that's what urgency really helps you thrive within the team, is keep them in a place where action is very important, as much as thinking, but action is very important. Talent. I'm stating the obvious, but you need to have the right talents on board in order for you to succeed. It's so important. That's at the beginning of any success in an innovation project. So it's difficult to recruit talents, The easy way for me to do that is actually when I'm talking to people and I feel somehow threatened by their experience and expertise, and that make me feel a little bit incompetent, then that's the right person to take. Of course, there's other considerations to take into account when it comes to the soft skills and the personality, so that the group is going to be very cohesive. But when you talk to talents, if you feel somehow threatened, then you're probably picking the right person, because this is what you want. You're going to learn a lot from that person, but most importantly, that person will be able to figure out things in a way that you can't. Empowerment is what you need to do with your talents, all right? It is so important that you spend time empowering them to make decisions, to problem solve, to lead the innovation that you're in charge of. And the reason for that is because you recruited talents. So you want to make sure that they really use the experience at the benefit of your project. And so many times, I've been in situations where I had a very formed opinion of what things should be and the way it should be done. But when you really start trusting the fact that you need to empower others, then you realize that most of the time they can come with other point of views that actually much more fit to the problem you want to solve. So empowerment is key for leading talents. Governance is the vessel of your innovation. You want to make sure that the teams are as creative as they can and as free as they can to actually innovate and problem solve. But you want to create a structure that allows you to actually move ahead and build over time, the maturity of your organization. And so, very simple way to state it, the governance is basically the meetings that you put in place, the structure, the agenda that you design for the purpose of your project. So in the case of Farm to People, we started with a high sense of urgency at the beginning, with the new team, and we had open calls every day. From 5 to 5:30, 30 minutes, everyone could join in a call. All the volunteers could jump on board. And there was no agenda. The whole idea was trying to figure out things as we go and implement, ideate, implement, ideate, implement. And every day, we'll catch up on what has been done, what we've tested, etc. Over time, things have evolved. So over time, things matured. We put processes in place. We put documentation, checklists. We've considered some learnings, and we start moving into weekly meetings. All right, 2 weekly meetings. And then with all hands for the rest of the team on a Thursday for 30 minutes. But this is how you structure your governance. And what is important is that you always try to step back and look at the agenda and the structure of your meetings and say, is this meeting still relevant for where I am in the stage of my project? And if not, just then cancel that and rebuild a new structure. So governance is very important for you to offer the vessel for your project to move ahead. Human-centered, having a human-centered mindset is one of the most crucial elements when it comes to designing innovation. All right? I cannot emphasize how important and how difficult it is. Being human-centered simply means that you want to constantly put your customer or your audience or your user, the person you serve, at the center of how you design a solution, at the center of how you solve for the problem. And I say it's very difficult is because we as humans are using assets, our values, our lenses, our experience to intuitively figure out what the problem is and how to solve it, which is, very much often right, but it's incomplete, okay? It's simply incomplete because, for example, I'm not a farmer. and I'm not a local minority-owned farm. I don't know the day-to-day job, the problem, the challenges, the opportunities behind, the job of farming. So if I want to design a solution that serves a farmer, I need to talk to a farmer. So we need to talk to a farmer. And the same way is go for the food banks we've been working on, or for a buyer, because you need to do the work of putting yourself in their shoes and really having an open mind. So in your job, this is as important. Everyone has a customer in your project. I mean, it can be an internal customer for an organization, or it can be an external customer, whether it's a product or service. Having a human-centered design is really, really stating the fact that if you think you know the solution, then you should probably not do that, and really take the time first to speak to the people that you serve. And one way of saying that is you're not designing for someone, you're designing a solution with someone. And that's how you make sure that what you put in place is actually relevant. And lastly, prototyping. Prototyping is something that you should be constantly using when you innovate. It should help you validate or invalidate a number of assumptions that you've made. So if this prototype happens to invalidate those assumptions, then you get rid of it, all right? And that's what you should feel comfortable doing, getting rid of this. And that's the reason why you need to find something that is cheap. So in the context of farm to people, for example, we had to build a digital platform to connect, the farmers to the food agencies, to list inventory, to have all this data somewhere so we can, follow the transaction flow. And what we decided to do is actually to use a pretty cheap solution called Airtable, which is literally $7 a month. And we've still been using this after 8 months. And we've moved 50 tons of produce. We have bills of sales on that system, invoices, etc. But it's based on a prototype. And tomorrow, when we're done using this, we've proved all the values of the flow that we've designed, then we're going to get rid of that. And this is fine for us. And there's been so many situations where we're using Airtable, where actually we're creating different views on the model and say, oh, it doesn't work, and we would just get rid of that. In your context, you need to find a way to creatively prototype your idea so you can test it with the users, all right? And then you can adjust. But that's a key element of leading innovation. So that's it. This is what I wanted to share with you today. Thank you so much for allowing me to do that. Share this experience around farm to people, but the 7 principles I've been using across my career to lead innovation. So once again, if you take your piece of paper, you should have drawn now, those 7 elements on it. I literally encourage you to put this on your desk, okay? This is something I, look at it on a daily basis to really make sure that I reflect back on the 7 elements to see where I need to focus my attention. So if you're interested in learning more about Farm to People, I encourage you that you visit our website, farmtopeople.org. And if you have any question for me, I am absolutely open to answer them. You can write to me on the following email address, which is eric@farmtopeople.org or eric@kinestry.io. Once again, thank you for your time and talk to you soon.